hopefully, I know that you can't say some things because of potentially working with companies and deals you have going, but hopefully one of those people is Checker. They are one of the worst in the world at security and doing their job. And I've actually worked with Checker on a firsthand basis for ParaWorks. So I can say that. I mean, like, I've even dealt with them, but I've always said, what do you expect for a 20 some odd dollar background check? But at the same time, I know that they've caused a lot of pain. They've caused a lot of wrongful deactivations. And I'm sure a lot of the people who claim wrongful deactivations were rightfully deactivated. Part of the problem being that you are never told why you were deactivated. You are just deactivated, and you can cry about it all you want. Sometimes you get back on, sometimes you don't. But right now, there's really no recourse for it in many places. And the recourse that is in place, it still has outs for them. So while at the same time, while you're trying to help these companies lock down the illegal accounts or the unwarranted users and secure up bank accounts and stuff like this, is there also something going on the other side saying, hey, we don't like that you've noticed where you're saying like, hey, we don't really like all these deactivations that you're doing daily? Like, have you had to say that to any of these companies kind of like?
Yeah, this is tricky, right? Because it also is very much dependent on like the regulations of each place. So, for example, deactivating like a driver in some countries in Europe, for example, is extremely hard. So you have to like have very good justification for that, etc. So what the way we approach this is um, the customers, they consume our data in a format that is very transparent. And basically, what we share with them are like, I'd say, three main categories of information. The first one is a risk assessment. So we're basically going to say, like, this is a high risk user, this is a low risk user. And based on that, they can decide what they do, right? So if they're going to suspend the account, if they're going to deactivate, or if they're going to allow the user to continue on the platform. Uh, the second piece is what we call the reason codes. So we always share like why are we saying that this is a high risk user or a low risk user. So if they need to explain it to someone, either the regulator or the driver, for example, they do have the information if necessary. And then finally, the last piece would be the like list of evidence, and basically we detail like, okay, this was the exact behavior that led us to think that this was a bad actor, right? So they have access to very granular information to make a more informed decision. And in case the like risk assessment, for example, was wrong, right? We said this was a high risk user, but in fact it wasn't. They have all the evidence, and they like if that person calls them, for example, and says like, "Hey, I was deactivated and this was wrong. I was doing the right thing." They can look at the data and say, "Yeah, in fact, you like this was a glitch in the system. We actually have proof that you were doing the right thing, so we're going to reactivate you." So I think that's the way to approach it. And the other thing is, we don't share and we don't even collect any personal information from these users. We don't have their name, we don't have their phone number, we don't know their like email address or social security numbers, anything like that. We're not a document verification company. We're focused on analyzing the device and its behavior. And by doing that, we end up reducing the risks of, for example, incorrectly flagging someone just because of some like biographical characteristics from that individual that might not be relevant for this type of judgment, let's say. So it's all based on device information and its behavior. And I think that makes the decision easier as well. So yeah, that's why we were able to claim that we have an error rate of 0.01%, because it's a very, I'd say, detailed process we run to determine the level of risk.
Is there a human at the end of the chain with you guys? Or, I mean, because a lot of
Um,
times with like DoorDash or whatever, there's just so many millions of people floating around that a lot of deactivations, I know this, I'm not asking, I actually know this is done on and that's why sometimes you might get reactivated, like you were just mentioning, like just a couple days later, but it's done on an algorithmic level. Sometimes there is no human involved.
Yeah. Like for most cases, there's like no one involved, but we basically have two APIs where we provide this data to our customers. The first one is the one that I just described, which is what we call the risk API. And then we have a second API, which we call the feedback API. And this is where our customers can provide us with more information about if we got this right or wrong, right? So in this case, for example, let's say we said that the user was high risk, the user got deactivated, they called the platform, they decided to reactivate this user. The platform will send us the information and say like, okay, this was a wrong assessment. And this helps us calibrate our machine learning models so that we can get it right the next time, right? So part of the process is fully automated, but part of the process is manual in case there is an intervention on the platform side with an agent, for example, that reactivated a user.
And to the smaller, I don't want to say mom and pop, but to the smaller gig companies out there, because I happen to know a handful of them, and they're out there trying to do the good things and be in this space, and they're still small, so they don't have to deal with that huge size and the mass onboardings. But is there a place for them with Incognia too? Is it a scalable thing that it doesn't have to be a DoorDash size model, or it doesn't have to be anything,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, not yet, and for two reasons. The first reason is because we like our product is primarily based on like AI and machine learning, and to make this work really well, we need a lot of data. So the product tends to work better for platforms that are larger as a result. And the second thing is that we don't yet have an interface in which a customer can do the entire integration process by themselves. Currently, what we do is we have a team, customer support team, that engages with these platforms to help them integrate the solution into their applications. And that's a process that takes some time. So because of that, we're not able to allow everyone to access and integrate the solution. But that's part of our plan, is to actually make it more and more accessible to smaller companies.
And is there any kind of like metric or point you can make as to the growth you're having?
Oh yeah, well, we started in late 2020. Now we are our technology is embedded in over 500 million devices. So that means that we're verifying over 500 million people globally. Yeah, so it's growing very fast. We're working.
I was gonna say that's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of data, a lot of things going on at the same time. But it's interesting because one of the things we're noticing is that because of this growth, the results are actually becoming much better over time. Because, for example, here in the US, we probably cover, I don't know, maybe 60 to 70% of the smartphones. So that means that we already have a lot of information and a lot of data about these devices. So, for example, let's say we started working with a new gig platform, and they just integrated the solution. If we were getting started, we would start like understanding and learning about these devices from that point onwards. But given we already have all of this knowledge, this new platform can benefit from everything we've learned from our existing customers already, right? So every new customer actually gets a better service as a result.
Sure.
And the network is growing extremely fast.
So what is the likelihood that Incognia is already on my phone?
Well, if you are in the US, I'd say 60 to 70%.
Right. Well, me especially, being on all the gig platforms that I am.
Yeah. Well,
pretty much
that's
100% is that what you're saying?
Yeah.